Well, so I'd say what brings this group together today, well, let me start. My name is Jay Weintraub, as Laura said, and I've been in the online space for, sort of over a decade. I think I'm up here today because I was the sucker that used to run a show called Daily Deal Summit, so I just feel a little bit sorry for anyone who would actually use the term daily deal today. I'd like to spend, I guess a minute. We'll let the panelists introduce themselves, but before we do that, I'd say what brings us together here is less a specific problem such as how do you get more lat long on mobile impressions and more an overall sort of feeling that maybe merchants have been are let down by the last couple years in terms of internet and technology. And kind of setting that stage, I'd say that our discussion today is really going to be about a handful of things. It's going to be sort of an ecosystem overall, why the people on stage decided to tackle sort of local. We'll have to talk about deals, even though it sort of has become that relative that no one wants to talk about. We'll talk sort of then about sort of like the new solution set that is evolving, and really kind of the sales and how do you scale a local commerce solution. So with that, I'm going to turn it over and let Logan introduce himself. Logan?
Thanks everyone for having me. My name is Logan LaHive. I'm the founder and CEO of a tech startup called Belly. We are a digital loyalty platform. We create loyalty solutions, custom unique loyalty solutions for small, medium-sized businesses. So we work with individual stores, put an iPad at point of sale, create a unique loyalty solution, and give customers the ability to have one card or app that they can use at all their favorite places.
I'm Wiley, Cerili, CEO, and I guess not the CEO anymore. I'm the founder of Single Platform, but now a vice president in Constant Contact. I run the Single Platform business. Single Platform is a digital storefront provider for small businesses. Basically, we help small businesses get discovered online. They put their rich content, their storefront information, their menus, their photos, specials into Single Platform, and we distribute it out to over 100 publishers across the web. All the top search engines, ratings, review sites, travel guides, and including Urban Spoon and Foursquare, Yellow Pages, and over 100 more.
Hi, my name's Stuart. I'm the CEO and founder of Signpost. Signpost is a marketing automation platform for local. We basically make marketing simple and effective for a local business. There are really kind of two steps for us. One is we're a single point of access to what we believe is every platform that matters for local business. It could be kind of every major directory, Amazon, eBay, and a few hundred others. And then everything that we do is focused on performance. And so we're big believers that local businesses should only pay for advertising solutions where they can measure the results and at least see if they're getting what they care about most, which is actual customers and traffic. And so everything we do for the business, whether it's kind of automating their email, managing social media, or kind of updating their presence across those platforms, is focused on performance.
No, thank you. If we start talking about sort of the ecosystem, would you say that it's kind of we can break it down into acquisition, retention, referral, and sort of operations when you think about sort of what the small businesses focus on? So if we say that's sort of the case, and we think about where they've been focused, take us through, as you see it, maybe the last, you don't have to go back too far, but when it comes to acquisition or retention or referral or even operations, where have local commerce solutions, what's sort of the focus been over the last X number of years?
Me specifically?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, obviously I think lately there's been a lot of focus on acquisition. Obviously I think Logan's doing some really cool stuff around retention. There's been a few other players in the same space. Traditionally, I think the way that it's been very fragmented. So there are a lot of these vertically integrated solutions that have their own sales force. They might have their own kind of directory or email list or something else, and basically have a sales force that's selling inventory directly in their platform. Pretty inefficient for publishers and local businesses. I would say acquisition's been the predominant approach, and most folks have been kind of vertically integrated.
I guess even what about before acquisition? Sort of Logan. You think about like retention, not a new concept. Obviously, retention with an iPad, new concept. Cash registers, credit card processing. Any major sort of anything in between those between, I think now and sort of the advent of, kind of what brings us here?
Anything in between? I don't know. When we talk to small businesses, I mean, there's really three key drivers for SMBs, and it's they're very simple. It's how many new customers can you acquire, average basket size, how much do people spend when they come in, and then how often do they come back? And those are really fundamentally the key three drivers for an SMB. I mean, there's we said there's a lot of innovation that's taking place in the acquisition space, whether it's online through deals or other avenues. You see people entering sort of the average basket size transaction space by attempting to disrupt kind of the antiquated and shitty point of sale industry, or through payments. And we really focus on retention and loyalty. I think, you said there's been a lot of tools. I mean, loyalty in SMB or local is not a new concept. But it's one that certainly hasn't been given an injection of innovation very long. I mean, the majority of businesses that we work with are either on, an antiquated system that's no one's utilizing from a point of sale or paper punch cards. So I think that's kind of the evolution of where innovation is coming.
And we'll come back to sort of how you decided to tackle it. But if we had to summarize, you'd say they think about acquisition, how much does someone spend, and how often do they come back and spend? And that's probably fairly consistent and hasn't changed despite the sort of the solution set changing. Their mindset is still the same, correct?
Yes, the mindset, and those are the key three drivers. But I think where the innovation has happened over the last few years has taken mind share and kind of distributed it disproportionately across those three kind of key buckets or avenues. I think mind share has primarily been on acquisition. I think average basket size, transaction size is things that a lot of SMBs or local do in store with their product mix, things they're trying to upsell, not much from a technology standpoint. And then now, at least we're working on shifting mind share towards what we believe to be, the real key driver is retention, loyalty.
Wiley, you've been in local for over a decade. Obviously a sucker for punishment since you started your next, the single platform also in local. What brought you originally into it, and what have you seen in the last, sort of decade that you've been doing local?
Yes, I think a couple years ago when I started single platform, I realized there was a tipping point within the local space. Local businesses before didn't want to be involved with a lot of internet startups. It was very difficult, especially in the beginning years of Seamless, to get businesses to really jump on board because we are an internet company. And now it's not a question of whether the internet can be really helpful to small businesses. It's just now they're overwhelmed with all these different solutions and being called on by ratings and review sites and apps and group buying companies. So they're just overwhelmed. So it's not that they don't want to spend more of their time and time and money. It's just they're just time starved.
And how many in the audience, I mean, this is New York, so it should be fairly biased, know Seamless? I probably should have said anyone that doesn't know Seamless or haven't used it, sort of recently. But so you're telling us that there was a time when Seamless was not, I mean, I guess you could say it was one of the original killer apps, potentially, of local. What was it like in the early days of Seamless, and you're trying to get this adoption? You had some funny anecdotes about fax, sort of machines overflowing and menu arbitrage. Can you take us through some of those early days?
I remember some of the early days when restaurants didn't necessarily want to work with us. We would fax orders to them, and they wouldn't want to deliver. This is back in like 2000. They wouldn't want to deliver orders, so we'd have to go out and deliver the orders ourselves until we started driving real volume. Then they started trusting us. The unfortunate side of the local side is that there's so many companies that want to get involved that there are a lot of companies that start up and eventually burn out. What happens is that local businesses now there's a real trust issue. They've been burned so many times, and I think that's what happened with Seamless. But obviously, once we started sending a lot of orders and paying them on time, they were obviously thrilled with our business. So it's really come a long way.
Well, I guess we could also say, Ben, this is not a plug for Seamless, but I mean that Seamless is again, sort of an acquisition tool. Speaking of one of the, scalable acquisition tools that obviously has run into some, brand challenges, I think it's only fair to talk about the deal space as the deal space really put, I think, local and local innovation on, kind of the map. Stuart, you started with the deals initially. How did you sort of avoid kind of getting dragged into being labeled as a deal company? I mean, obviously, the term today that you use, marketing automation, is pretty, a great description, but how did you can you take us through the evolution and how you didn't necessarily get stuck as being a deal company? Because, 2010, 11, it'd be highly tempting.
So I won't go into detail, it's probably not relevant, but we were never really formally a pure play daily deal company. I think if you do look at that category, obviously there's been a ton of volatility. We think the main innovation that did come with the daily deal wave was closing the loop for local businesses. And so, like I said before, we actually give our businesses a survey at the bottom of every email that kind of gauges our Net Promoter Score and what's important to them. And consistently, the number one importance criteria is transparency. So the ability for them to know what's happening, and this I think goes back to what Wiley was saying with trust, just understanding what's happening with the platform. And a big benefit of that is having the ability to close the loop and know not only how many emails did I send, or how many people saw my ad, but actually how many people came into my business. And so we're big believers in closing the loop. Daily deals, I think we know have a lot of negatives associated with them, both in terms of running a business in that category and then also for the SMBs that are using those services. But we're excited about kind of innovation on the ability to close the loop and link acquisition with retention. We see kind of that dynamic existing long into the future. There will still be daily deal companies years from now, but we're really excited about what's coming next.
Well, take us through what a merchant today that is going to be a client of yours, there's still a deal component initially, correct?
So, we call them commerce-based ads.
Sorry, commerce-based ads.
But
there's a CBA component, is there not?
The analogy is, whenever we run an ad, there has to be an action you're trying to get the customer to execute. And so in our purchase, it means there has to be something for sale. So the example we use a lot is there's a guy who runs a charter service in Miami. It's $1,000 to charter his yacht for 3 hours. That's not necessarily a deal. That's just a service that he's selling. And so when we go out and get placement on directories, or we'll have a page on Google mobile search, eBay, et cetera, we're basically creating an e-commerce presence for that business, where instead of just getting the impression, we're actually putting people into a conversion funnel where they're buying something. And if they don't buy from the business, that's actually also really good information for us and the business owner, because that means we can get better. So we see, because we have transparency all the way through the funnel, we know what channels work for that business. And actually throughout the month, we'll cycle that campaign through one of our 1,200 different partners, depending on what we see being successful. And at the end of the day, the business, Raul would come to us and say, okay, I have a $1,000 charter. He would also create 9 other campaigns, so we kind of have a wide variety. And my goal is getting, call it 20 charters per month. After week 1, if we were at 10, we would keep spinning up new publishers. If we hit 20 right away, it would go to sleep and then turn on again in the next month.
And how is how is this merchant, sort of compensated? Because you seem to have the best of both worlds, if I remember correctly, a subscription side of your component and a performance side?
Yeah, so we're, just to reemphasize, we're a software platform, so marketing automation for local. So it's $150 a month to month. We don't do contracts or anything like that. We don't want a business to be on our platform if they're unhappy with the service. As part of the service, we have built-in partnerships with these major platforms, and our kind of pre-negotiated terms with those partners is a 20% commission on anything that the business sells in terms of new business. We also have, constant contact email tools, tool for Yelp, Facebook, et cetera. That's all free. There's kind of no commission associated with that. But to the extent that, let's say, on his directory, someone buys that charter for $1,000, he would pay the publisher $200 for that placement, and then he would get a check for $800. And so our idea is we will get him placement anywhere that can operate on a CPA. And if they can't operate on a CPA, that probably means it's not a good platform for him.
And you use the term, and I'll make sure to get this right by the end of this discussion, that it's commerce-based ads, it's software as a solution, and marketing automation. As we think about some of those tools, they're very sort of very different, because Wiley, you don't necessarily do commerce-based ads. Is there any overlap between the two businesses?
Yeah, there certainly is. I think we're in the business of helping businesses get discovered. We're at a point where we help a business bring their storefront and publish it online across hundreds of places where people are making purchasing decisions. So what he's doing is he's getting in front of people that are making purchasing decisions, and there's a great value add, and that's exactly what we do. And there's over 100 million storefront views or menu views this last year in 2012. There's a lot of value to providing that to a local business.
So I'd say in many ways yours is a content distribution push, and we might say that Stuart is doing a more specific transaction. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
And not to leave Logan out, how did you sort of avoid also getting sort of, because when did you start? 2010?
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
So
Recently.
maybe just late enough to have, that there's no funding if you wanted to be a deal site. But is there another reason why you didn't necessarily go a deal route when you were beginning?
Is there another reason we didn't go a deal route? Well, one, I just thought it was a shitty business.
No offense to deal sites that may still be
At
lurking.
the time, in 2011, you're starting a deal site late 2011.
And that wasn't a good plan?
Not my plan.
All
Not my plan. I think when you're starting a business, obviously you're trying to solve a problem and you're looking for gaps, opportunities in the marketplace. There was, like I said, a huge amount of competition and people addressing new customer acquisition. There was a huge amount of competition and players with a large amount of scale in acquisition. But there was, obviously the problem, like Stuart said, was kind of this closed loop. Daily deal sites are great for what they are. Daily deals become kind of almost a four-letter word, but they're great for what they are. They're great for sending a coupon and driving someone into your store, deal seeker into your store. Now, whether or not there's an ROI on that type of visit, if that person doesn't come back, is I think highly debatable. I think most people would agree that if people aren't returning, it's not a viable option, or it's not a viable way for a small business to grow. So we try to think about what would effectively drive ROI for an SMB, and that was helping them create more of a digital experience in-store, focusing on the in-store solution, more data and analytics about who their customers are, how often they come in, communication, email address, social advocacy, those sorts of connections, and provide them a full data loop on this is your customer, this is how they discovered you, this is when they come in, how often they come back, and then provide them with retargeting and all sorts of other opportunities in order to drive frequency.
So some really powerful concepts that you're sort of mentioning. Can you take us through sort of how it actually, sort of plays out? So user comes in, it's one of your many thousand of merchants. How are you doing this, sort of tying this online to online, sort of loop?
Yeah, I think most people look at us as, at least when we started, as a digital replacement of a buy 10, get one free punch card. But really our goal is to take the traditional offline experience of buying a cupcake, getting your hair cut, going to your dog groomer, and try and bring that experience in store more online. Provide small, medium-sized businesses with, the technology platform that they would otherwise not have the ability to have access to.
So we'll dumb it down. Physical app on the
Physical
phone.
app. Yeah. So we put an iPad or a tablet at point of sale. That tablet is customized for that business, so their logo, and we create rewards programs, loyalty and rewards that are custom and unique to that business. So understanding that business's culture, personality, business objectives, we create a suite of rewards that reflect that business to try and help them establish a better relationship with their customers. And then when a customer can come in, they can sign up for Belly at that business with a physical loyalty card, one card they can use at all of our locations. Or they can download our app.
So a Belly card or the Belly app in this case, okay?
A Belly card or Belly app, they can use at all of our participating locations. And they use that really to facilitate an in-store experience, to go into actually an SMB, make a transaction and have an experience between them and a cashier at point of sale. Understanding kind of seeing the rewards, seeing the personality, the culture of that individual business. We're trying to take that traditional offline experience of going in and working with a loyalty program and bring that more online. So help the business then acquire email address, social connections, understanding customer data on how often they come back, really digitizing what has traditionally been completely offline.
Now, I think when we think about where they've historically been to where merchants are going today, I think when I talked to Wiley, you sort of mentioned, I feel like we think about what can influence acquisition, retention. We have really the media, and we have technology, and now the consumer media seems to be driving a lot of what merchants are interested in. Is that sort of what you're seeing, Wiley, and that they're, what are they asking for when they think about, kind of today? What are they saying? Hey, this is what we care about.
Yeah, sure. So what we're seeing is that the internet is changing from a listing directory, like a typical Yellow Pages book, to a discovery engine. People are going online and trying to find local businesses. In fact, Google released a stat last year. They said 49% of people, when they're looking up a local business online, don't actually have a local business in mind. So that means 50% of the people are going online saying, I'm hungry, I don't know where to eat, and 50% of the people are saying, I want Kenny's Pizza. So what is the thing that they're actually looking for? Well, Yellow Pages did this huge study, and they said the number one thing people are looking for are the prices and the products, like the services, or for a restaurant, say a menu, to help determine where they're going to purchase that. So the internet is shifting, and you hear the word discovery being used a lot, and that's really what it is. It's becoming a discovery engine. And so what we hear is small businesses want to figure out how they can be discovered online.
So we heard from City Maps, who I thought that was kind of clever when they talked about the rooftop to what's under the roof. Fair to say that then what you're focusing on is what's behind the window, that menu, that products and services that are actually there?
Yeah, that's right. So we're essentially offering a window into every business within the United States, and that's our goal, to give you the experience of going into the place and saying, what is it that you sell, what's available, and what's the price.
We talked a lot, and we still will, about acquisition. I think one of the things I'd like to hear from is, how do you take somebody where acquisition is an easy thing to experience? How do you change the mindset towards retention and have someone feel like this is something that they all know that mentally it's something worth paying attention to, but do they? So I ask you, like Stuart, I've heard this before, that that companies rarely, especially local merchants, rarely think in terms of customer acquisition cost and lifetime value. Those are very important if they're going to work with you. What's been your experience in terms of the average merchant, and if you say to them, how much can you afford for a customer, and how much is a customer worth? Do they look at you with a funny face?
Yeah, so I think, lifetime value is probably not a phrase they would use. Certainly what Logan mentioned before, the number of, are those customers, are they good customers? Are they coming back, is something that resonates with them very well, because most people we talk to are owner-operators, and so they actually see the people that we're sending their way.
Well, I guess it's nice to know that when we walk into a business, they don't look at us as LTV. Yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, so not a number. The way we solve the problem is, again, we're big believers in transparency, so we actually send a weekly email with an update on their performance, where they've been featured, impressions, clicks, purchases, and in that we have an ROI calculator that estimates. This is real estimate, so if we're not performing, it will be negative. It actually doesn't happen very often, but it says this is the expected value of the service, and this is how we're building that calculation. And part of that is an expected repeat purchase rate that varies based on the category that we've worked pretty hard at to estimate. And so that at least gets them thinking around, is this tool making me more money than it's costing? And if the answer is, you'd like to improve the ROI, then there are steps that they can take that will make it more valuable. But that's how we solve that.
Well, and I think, and Wiley, I hope you'll jump in as well, but Stuart, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like part of the problem was saying, okay, here's a value proposition, you're going to make money off of this, but then communicating what you're actually doing on their behalf and giving them a way to evaluate if it's being successful in a way that may not be a new body in. So how do they, essentially that they stay with you? Is that, do I hear you correctly, that part of the challenge is not just, look, you pay us, $10, we'll get you a customer, but making it feel like you're actually, connecting to the experience of running their business?
Yeah, so our incentives as a software as a service platform is our customers actually retaining the service. And so because they renew voluntarily month to month, part of our culture and kind of our reason for existing, and then also the economics for us as a business, are optimizing for retention rate. And so, as Wiley was saying before, there are some trust issues with locals. So they've been burned by startups. They've tried using Twitter or Facebook and it hasn't been successful. They might have put money into AdWords. So they're pretty skeptical of kind of any solution out there. And so for us, being transparent, kind of readily reporting what's going on, I think is a big benefit and allows them to stick around. And again, we position it in that if you want to drive better results, here are things you can do to help. And so in that sense, we're almost, in some ways kind of consulting them on different ways to get better.
And we'll start with Logan or Wiley, but I think, again, Stuart, you mentioned something that's interesting, which is they've been burned. There's a trust issue we've heard many times here, trust, trust, trust. How, especially now when there's been a proliferation of people pitching, merchants, what's been, and all of you I think are here besides being smart, amazing people, but you've also here because you've scaled businesses in a phenomenally lean way. So, I think we'll break it up and say first, what's been that initial hurdle when talking to the merchant, and how have you gotten through that trust barrier?
Well, I mean, we're Belly, so I wouldn't say necessarily we're the leanest startup out there. But for us,
So is that a play on words? Because
it's a fat
belly.
joke.
Yeah.
We also spent a lot of
I
money.
told my wife I was going to try to lose some weight. Please.
In terms of how do you reach them, SMBs being burned, that's just a fact. If you're trying to get into the local or SMB space, you really have to enjoy pain. I mean, it's a tough business, and that's because right now, I think that the number one issue that you face in this space is just reaching the decision maker. If you can find effective ways to reach the decision maker in an SMB or in local, that's more than half the battle.
Agreement on the rest of the panel, reaching the decision maker?
Yeah.
And what about the fat joke and or being it's being painful? Well, Wiley, there's no fat jokes with you, so.
It's a painful, definitely a painful process. And there's only one way. You need to reach out to them yourself. You need to call them and talk to them.
Well, then we'll say, I think fat jokes are fun in the morning, so we'll leave those aside for now. But yours is amazing that you don't have, sort of Logan, you have physical devices, but yet you even put stats on your website of how many merchants. How many merchants do you have?
Right now it's 4,000 plus, 4,200, something like that.
4,200. That's 4,200 physical devices. How many markets?
It's about 15.
About
we have
15
locations
markets.
in 38 states. We have staff. We've launched in about 15 markets.
No, but you don't have 5,000 people on the ground doing this. So take us through, it's a good time for you to sort of brag if you'd like.
So how did we expand?
Yeah.
Well, we started, like I said, in August 2011. So it's been about 500 days, something like that. So
That's not bad. Almost 10 merchants a day across 15 markets. Good.
We did about 500 locations in 2011. So we did about, we're up to about 4,100, 4,200 now. And we install our platform in about 100 to 150 new stores a week. And that's continuing to expand. I mean, that's obviously, we have a hardware solution. So it takes some level of involvement getting every store set up. And so we have a team and a staff that has grown, to really be able to facilitate that. And now that makes us the largest owner-operator of customer-facing tablets in stores. For us, it's how did we expand is really kind of ground and pound. I mean, it's all the above. We started with field sales, going door to door, pounding pavement. I mean, that was me knocking on doors. It was coffee shops, bagel shops in the morning, lunch places in the afternoon, bars and restaurants at night, and trying to hit, dog groomers and things during kind of peak lunch hours. And that was just straight door to door. Now we have a team where we have a blend of inside-outside sales. We directly call merchants, walk into stores, try and get to decision makers and schedule appointments. But it's evolved over time. We try and launch regionally, and that's really in order to focus on what we call like a little bighorn approach. So we try to saturate a neighborhood with really focusing on small businesses first, and the small businesses really surround some of the larger chains or influencers.
Is there a viral effect here? I mean, have you seen this?
Yeah, in every market, you get to a tipping point, right? So in Chicago, that was about 200 locations. Our first 200 were very hard. The next 500 were much easier. And you get to a tipping point when you start to install, at least with an iPad at point of sale, business owners shop at other businesses. So we would see, businesses going into the coffee shop down the street, seeing us and inbounding. And obviously, we focus a huge amount of our efforts, and everyone should take this, obviously, is kind of the number one criteria, I think, when you're building a business in this space, is, you can sell as much as you want. You can be the most effective sales organization in the world, But if your product isn't great, if merchants don't love it, if they don't find value in it, if people aren't using it, you'll never sustain. So we invest a lot in terms of our product. And now, about 25, 30% of our locations that we set up are inbound requests. So they call us through web.
And you've had some pretty impressive, some chains, McDonald's, 7-Eleven, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we've got some locations set up. We really focused on starting as a solution for SMB. And so, our goal early on was obviously just acquiring and working with small, medium-sized businesses. But as we expanded, as you start to expand and hit a tipping point in a market, you start to get some attention. So, we work with McDonald's. McDonald's was an interesting one. Their head of their ad agency was actually working at a coffee shop that had Belly. And she filled out a contact form on our website and said, I want to pitch this to McDonald's. So that's one where we got set up with a small pilot there. And we work with pilots, regional pilots with a lot of big name chains.
Now, Wiley, how did you decide, to sort of go with the acquisition versus, be independent? What was it about sort of the Constant Contact where you said, this sort of makes sense? And I think specifically maybe you can sort of touch upon this challenge that anyone who's marketing to local faces in terms of scaling out, because the first 50 is usually, obviously not easy, but it's certainly easier than the next, 50,000.
Sure. So we really weren't looking to be acquired at the time. In fact, we were in the process of raising a $17 million round of funding, and ran into Constant Contact, and it was just a win-win-win. Like, it was a win for Constant Contact, a win for Single Platform, our employees, and for small businesses. I think the most astonishing thing to me about Constant Contact was the fact that they have, we have 10,000 small businesses that have signed up. We launched just over a year ago, and we have 10,000 small businesses that have signed up, over 10,000 now. But Constant Contact has over 500,000 SMBs. They're onboarding over 45,000 a month, and they have an attrition rate of right around 2%. And each one of those stats are just astonishing to me.
And how do you do 40-some thousand a month at $39 a pop with 2% attrition? It's astounding.
That's lower than the national rate of small businesses going out of business. So that's incredible. So we felt like we wanted to scale the business. Here's a public company that has the resources to do it. We were a startup, constantly raising money, constantly pitching, and I wanted to build this business, and they were a great rocket ship to jump on board with. So it made a lot of sense. Our goals were aligned. They have a great suite of services that helps retain their customers, from email to EventSpot to their deal platform, and now they have a company that can help open up the front door and get their small businesses discovered. So now we went from having over 10,000 paid customers, 600,000 free customers, to now having over 500,000 paid customers. So it opens up a lot of doors for us.
As we start to sort of wrap up, any questions for the audience? We've got an iPad full of questions, and we could keep going. But anyone like to jump in? It's an amazing time to ask some questions here. Want to just yell?
Yeah, you talked about discovery, people discovering deals on the internet, and then Stuart, you also talked about or the charter board member, the person paying $800 to the publisher and $200, or sorry, the other way around. So should a company like Groupon be considered? Be worried that users are not coming directly to Groupon and searching for deals instead of going to Google, say, and then discovering what to do? And
yeah, good question. We definitely think there's a shift. If you think about kind of the predominant distribution approach to the daily deal sites, they are these deal seekers. Someone brought up earlier. So Groupon looks for people that buy Groupons 5 times a week and never go back to those businesses again. That's kind of not a good investment if you're a local business to sell to those types of folks. Alternatively, people that are more intent-based search, where they're on a directory, they see something's for sale, might not necessarily be a deal, or it might be something that looks very different than a daily deal. It's much more relevant. It's much more likely that person could become a regular customer than kind of like this deal parade that goes through the email approach. So I think that shift is definitely happening. If you look at the stats, daily deals as a market is expected to grow like 35% next year, something like that. I definitely think it will shift to a much more relevant delivery and probably away from this kind of 50% off model that I think is pretty bad for the local businesses.
Anyone else? Oh, over there. Or if you yell, we'll just say it.
We can hear you.
I love the idea of discovery, right? So internet's becoming a discovery engine, not just a content serving engine. Great. What's baffling me, though, is how do you deal with the SEO implications of that, right? So you got 100 pizzerias in, I don't know, Westchester. And somebody said there very well that half people don't know where they want to go. So how do you reconcile that? I want to be higher than him, and he's my competitor down the block.
And are you saying this from a consumer standpoint, a merchant standpoint?
The merchant standpoint, the SMB.
Yeah, so there's several steps for the merchant. What I would suggest is downloading the new Yellow Pages app, and you'll see how they're changing the way people will discover local businesses. So what they've done is, so we have these 600,000 businesses that we've got this storefront information for. So whether it's a florist or it's a spa salon and their services or a pizzeria with their menu, we give them all that data, and it's actually free for our publishers. And then they index all that data, so that when you're looking for a calzone or you're looking for wings because it's football, it'll actually show all the places that now serve wings. So it's not that they don't have to, the businesses don't have to pay for that, but there's such an added benefit now that Yellow Pages and soon other publishers of ours will start to index all those items. So it's like itemized search, but they don't have to pay for it. So it's a huge benefit. It's not just the items on their page and you have to go to Kenny's Pizzeria to see the menu. You could also just look up chicken calzone and all of a sudden Kenny's Pizzeria is going to show up with the other places that have indexed their content through our platform. It's really incredible.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone on the stage. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, whether it was near field, a lot of topics yet to be discovered, and I guess thank goodness because there's 2 more great days ahead. Everyone, would you please join me in thanking our amazing panelists?